The floating smell of death hangs over the island. What is it? A strange, legged fish appears on the scene. So begins Tadashi and Kaori's spiral into the horror and stench of the sea. Hold your breath until all is revealed. Something's rotten in Okinawa.
What we do here is go back.
Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode, another edition of A Week in Geekdom here on YouTube. This time we're bringing horror back into this channel. Of course, I am talking some Junji Ito action with the book GYO. This is Ito's, or actually, if I'm not mistaken, one of Ito's shortest books. And after reading Uzumaki and doing a review for this channel, I was pumped and I ordered GYO. And man, I didn't know what this book was about. I just knew that it involved sea creatures, fish, and all that stuff. And the plot in this story is so preposterous that I don't even know how to describe it. Basically, these guys, this couple, like I mentioned at the beginning, Tadashi and Kaori, they find out, or they see some really creepy stuff on their vacation to Okinawa, and it turns out that fish are leaving the sea and venturing onto dry land to take over. That's where it starts. It is a very silly premise, and it gives one of the most meme-worthy moments when it comes to manga and anime, when you have a freaking shark chasing after people on land. And it got me questioning, is Junji Ito trying to pull a Sharknado on everybody? Because I found it so hilarious and so ridiculous that I really liked it. Don't get me wrong, it is a fantastic read. You're gonna have a fun time with this. But be warned, there is some very grotesque imagery. If you don't dig that sort of thing, then just steer away. I mean, if you see fish like this, looking all sorts of creepy, and then you see stuff like this, which is a little foul. If you see stuff like this bothers you, this is not the book for you. However, if you want to venture on and read some of the weirdest storytelling you will ever lay your eyes on, then yeah, Junji Ito provides a very fun and weird story about what would happen if the sea creatures invaded land and we would have to fight back. I don't know how that would work in real life. There is an explanation within the story as to why it is happening, and I thought it is the most ingenious thing to explain how this preposterous idea would come about, and it was just hilarious to me. Like, everything was so far-fetched that I was like, yep, I believe it. You know, it's so silly that it's awesome, and I cannot recommend this book enough. However, be warned, it is a very short read compared to Uzumaki, Tomie, and all the other books that Ito has done. This is, you can read this in like an hour or two. It does have a sort of bittersweet finale, as I like to call it, but for the most part, I think the story is fine. It's well contained, and the characters, they go through a lot with the whole sharks and octopus and fish stalking the streets of Japan and the world. There's this running theme with the stench of death, because it reeks what's happening. These fish are abandoning their home, and we're getting basically weird fleet of fish that are just rotten to the core, and they stink, and I can only imagine. And if you've ever walked by a fish market and you've smelled fish, then just imagine that, but way more fishes involved. Plus, there's this really cool thing that happened to me, and it has to do with the fact that the book has, or the paper quality from Viz Media has this very particular smell. I don't know if every copy is like that. Let me know down below. This is a very stupid question that I'm asking, but it's It's a very particular smell. So when the book says the floating smell of death and the death stench creeps, I'm like, yep, okay, this is some 4D type crap where the smell has to do with the story. I know it's not on purpose, it's a joke. But yeah, the book kind of stinks. You know, part of the fun of GYO is watching the descend into madness when it comes to society and how they deal with this incoming threat that they cannot control. It's very much like a zombie story, but just adding the fact that it's fish and it's something that you would have killed rather easily, or it would have been contained in the ocean. Now it's this invading force, and people are just going nuts because no matter what they do, the horror element just continues, and you see society breaking down day by day in the actual story. And that of course is reflected in an isolated case by the two protagonists and their whole ordeal that they go through. Without spoiling much, certain stuff happens to this couple. They really have to step it up and try and fix things. Whether or not they succeed, I'm going to leave it up to you to find out. Nowhere else but manga can you see craziness like this. And for that, I commend Ito. And even though it is a particularly silly and weird, just bizarre premise, it works. Because you suddenly find out, like, here we have these walking corpses, basically, crunching and munching away at everything that they can find, and people are getting invaded, and you can't really kill them because they're dead, you know? Obviously, as you can see here, a fish wouldn't survive outside its home environment. So why are they walking and why do they have legs? It has to do with World War II for some reason. You're gonna have to read on and find out. But yeah, a very silly but interesting premise. Ito is definitely a master at his craft. As much as I am making fun of the premise, the drawings and everything is just superb as everything else that Ito does. The characters look grotesque, they look awesome at the same time. Really cool monster designs, if you will. Plus, the whole subplot it's sort of the Twilight version of a zombie apocalypse, but with fish instead of, zombies. I think the reason a lot of people say it is his weakest book is because it's just one story, where I think Ito succeeds is in telling short horror stories that can creep you out. And even though I'm going to use Uzumaki as an example, even though that book told a long narrative, it was interwoven with mini stories that could have been read as standalone stories. So I thought that was a great book. Whereas with GYO, it's just one story. So if you don't like the premise, you're kind of screwed, because that's all there is. It's talking about the whole rise of the walking fish, if you will. There are a couple of short stories at the end of the book, like 2 or 3 mini stories, which I really loved and was creeped out. Those were fantastic. I'm not gonna lie, that was probably my favorite part of the book. But yeah, the story's pretty interesting. It is definitely unique, pretty psychedelic and grotesque. Once again, Junji, you have surprised me with your creepiness. Guys, what do you think of GYO? What's your favorite Junji Ito book? I want to know that. Let me know down below. Also, how would you survive the rise of the walking dead fish? How would you survive? Let me know. As always, guys, you can follow me on your favorite social media platform. Just type up Weekend Geekdom and I'm there for you. Alright, I've got to go. We've got to do more videos for you, talk about books and movies and all that stuff. So I'll catch you on our next episode. Nowhere else but manga can you see craziness like this.